The year is 1962. The world teeters on the brink. The United States and the Soviet Union, locked in the chilling embrace of the Cold War, view each other with suspicion and fear. Each possesses a terrifying nuclear arsenal, capable of obliterating humanity. Trust is a luxury neither superpower can afford. In this powder keg atmosphere, Cuba emerges as a flashpoint. Fidel Castro's communist revolution in 1959, just 90 miles from American shores, sends shockwaves through Washington. The Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, a failed attempt to topple Castro, further inflames tensions. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev sees an opportunity. He makes a secret pact with Castro's Soviet nuclear missiles will be deployed on Cuban soil. The aim is twofold: to deter a U.S. invasion of Cuba and to level the nuclear playing field, countering American missiles stationed in Turkey. The stage is set for a confrontation that will push the world to the edge of annihilation. The Cuban Missile Crisis, a 13-day ordeal in October 1962, will become a chilling testament to the fragility of peace in the nuclear age. October 14, 1962. A U.S. reconnaissance plane soars over Cuba, its cameras capturing images that will send chills down the spines of American intelligence analysts. Soviet nuclear missile sites under construction but nearing completion are clearly visible. The crisis has begun. President John F. Kennedy assembles a group of advisors, the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, or XCOM. The options are stark: a full-scale invasion of Cuba, a surgical airstrike on the missile sites, or a naval blockade to prevent further Soviet shipments. Tension grips the White House. Kennedy, aware that any misstep could trigger a nuclear holocaust, opts for the blockade, terming it a quarantine to avoid escalating the situation. The world holds its breath. Soviet ships carrying nuclear materials and guarded by submarines steam towards Cuba. The U.S. Navy prepares to intercept them. The world watches aghast as the two superpowers inch closer to the abyss. As the world teeters on the precipice, a flurry of diplomatic activity unfolds behind the scenes. Kennedy and Khrushchev, conscious of the catastrophic stakes, communicate through a fragile hotline, their messages laden with urgency and veiled threats. Robert F. Kennedy, the president's brother and attorney general, engages in secret back-channel negotiations with Soviet ambassador Anatoly Dobrinin. A deal begins to take shape. The Soviets will remove the missiles from Cuba in exchange for a U.S. pledge not to invade the island. However, a critical obstacle remains. Unbeknownst to the Americans, a Soviet submarine, armed with a nuclear torpedo, lurks beneath the waves near Cuba. Its captain, believing war has broken out, is authorized to launch if attacked. The fate of the world hangs by a thread.
The atmosphere in the submarine was, well, suffocating. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Captain Savitsky was convinced war had begun, and he ordered the nuclear torpedo to be prepared for launch.
The submarine, designated B-59, was being subjected to depth charges by U.S. destroyers. What the Americans didn't know was that this submarine carried a deadly nuclear payload.
Protocol required all three senior officers to agree before launching the torpedo. Captain Savitsky had made his decision, and the political officer Maslenikov agreed with him. Then, well, all eyes turned to me.
Vasily Arkhipov, the second in command, was no stranger to pressure. A veteran of a previous nuclear submarine accident, he remained calm and collected, even as the situation spiraled towards catastrophe.
I wasn't convinced that war had actually begun. Something just didn't feel right. I had to speak up. I argued against the launch.
In a moment of extraordinary courage, Arkhipov stood his ground. Against unimaginable pressure, he persuaded Captain Savitsky to surface the submarine and await further orders from Moscow.
It was the right decision. It had to be.
The world unknowingly breathed a collective sigh of relief. Vasily Arkhipov's bravery and level-headedness had averted nuclear annihilation. A single act of defiance in the face of overwhelming tension saved the world from disaster. The Cuban Missile Crisis, though a terrifyingly close call, brought significant changes in its aftermath. It led to a thawing of relations between the superpowers, at least for a time. One of the most notable outcomes was the establishment of a direct hotline between Washington and Moscow. This simple yet profound step improved communication and reduced the risk of dangerous miscalculations. The crisis serves as a stark reminder of how fragile peace can be. and how critical diplomacy and clear communication are in a world armed with weapons of unimaginable power. Even in the darkest moments of conflict, the willingness to engage in dialogue and find common ground remains essential. It's a lesson we cannot afford to forget. As we reflect on this pivotal chapter in history, we must remember the lessons etched into it. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought humanity closer to annihilation than ever before, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure that we never come so close again. The future of humanity depends on the lessons we carry forward.